So Gojuger's over, marking the end of Super Sentai. But after all the controversies and production issues, does Gojuger actually do a good job at being an anniversary season for the entire franchise? Is the show actually good? Let's talk about it. First off, I should say I actually do like this season overall. I think for the most part, the story is actually fairly good. However, I do think that the show has way too many moving parts and factions that it's just trying to balance out. And due to that, it led to some parts of the show feeling neglected or just outright rushed. As for the final episode, it was just okay. It had a lot of full circle moments that I really appreciated. Though the way the final fight ended was overall just very anticlimactic, especially since it's the final fight for the entire franchise. Though I do like that all the characters got a happy ending and they still keep this friendly rivalry relationship even after the second ring war. That being said, I think where this show shines is the characters. This is one of those Sentai seasons where it's really hard to pick a favorite character. Like, every one of these guys is likable in their own right. And I think this is in part because they're all flawed in some sort of way, making them feel like actual people rather than just a character in a show. And I think the perfect example of this is actually Hoederu. Hoederu isn't your typical happy-go-lucky Red. He's rash, brutal, blunt, and isn't gonna hold back. And coming from a show where the last Red had literal NPC energy throughout his entire show, I really appreciate that Hoederu actually has a personality. And once you get into Hoederu's backstory, you actually get to see why he's a lone wolf. Being trapped in an unfamiliar world for years and then losing your family, especially your brother, not only once but twice, is just brutal and leaves him without a desire, wish, or really overall just a drive to do much. But as the series goes on, you get to see him form a bond with all the Gozyugers, the Universe Warriors, and even the villains. And the fact that he had to literally choose between his friends or the family he always wanted for a power-up honestly just shows how much he saw them as his true family. And at the very end, he was forced to see all of his friends die one by one, leaving him right back where he was at the beginning of the series, except now at a much worse state. And honestly, I'm glad that his wish wasn't just bring back my friends. Instead, it was, I want to bring them back and I actually want to face them for real this time. It makes the fact that he won the ring battle the second time feel earned. And then the fact that he found a purpose and will to continue living genuinely shows how much these past 2 years have changed his perception on life. That the joy in life is finding the people you care about and cherishing them. But I don't only like Hoederu for his overall story. I actually genuinely liked his gags. They were genuinely hilarious and overall just relatable. That one episode where he shows just how broke he is by buying discounted stuff is just funny as hell and overall just relatable as hell. So yeah, Gojuger absolutely fell victim to the Red Ranger focus, but this time I'm actually completely okay with it for the most part. Now, as for Rikuo, I wouldn't say that he's my favorite character of the show, but he's a cool character for the most part. Going into the show, we knew that he had trauma from his live shows, and they did explore this idea, but not until the very end. Whereas throughout the entire show, he's just seen doing live performances on the whim and then capturing the crowd's heart easily. Hell, I'm pretty sure there was a whole #1 battle surrounding this. I really wish they would have explored this earlier into the story and not wait until the very end. Now, with this said, I did like his relationship with Bouquet. Her being his #1 fan and literally being every idol fan ever was just honestly cute. However, I felt the climax moment where she found out he was a Gojuger was very forced. Like, Ribbon was literally introduced as Bouquet's younger sister, does some stuff just to be a menace for 4 to 5 episodes, and then dies to Rikuo. And that's how Bouquet finds out. Ribbon's entire existence was literally to move the plot along. There were way better ways that you could have done this story here. You didn't even need to have Ribbon. You could have literally had a simple Romeo and Juliet story where there's some sort of forbidden love. And given the whole wedding theme, it actually might have fit in the overall narrative of the story. But no, let's introduce this random character to be used as a plot device. Rikuo would still act in the same manner going into the #1 world, and the battle would almost play out exactly the way it does. But with this said, I think his story with Rei was beautifully done. And honestly, this entire arc was one of the best parts of the entire show. Rei was set up to be a mysterious character who was Rikuo's mentor, who casually kidnapped Sumino's sister. He blackmails Rikuo into going after the Gozyugers due to saving his life against a crazed fan. But with this, he blames Rikuo for his life going to shit and joins up with the Calamity. And of course he began stealing Sentai rings and experimenting on Oto. And the fact that this man had what, 4 rings, one of those being Goju Tyranno, is just insane. And this guy used those rings pretty damn well, all things considered. But as for how it relates to Rikuo, I like how it emphasized his bond with each of the Gozyugers, as he was willing to kill Rei if it meant saving his friends, and even willing to go in alone, but was only stopped by Sumino, who was willing to forgive the man who kidnapped her sister. And the arc ends beautifully with almost everyone getting a happy ending. Overall, I didn't hate Rikuo's story, just compared to the rest of the group, there was some areas that I would probably change. But with that said, I guess this is a good point to talk about Sumino. And before we get into anything, I should just say fuck Seiju, fuck Bunshun, whatever the fuck it's called. That shit was horrible for everyone involved, especially Maya. I wish nothing but the best for Maya and hope that she can come back from this. And I'm gonna say it, this whole situation affected Sumino's whole story. Not that that really matters. I guess for the purpose of this review, it kinda does matter, but that's besides the point. They set up Sumino's whole character arc around finding her sister, and then eventually getting her sister back, which eventually they do. However, in the very next episode, she is still in a coma, and from then on out, they don't even touch upon this plot point ever again. Even in the fight against Kinjiro, it's just, yeah, we're from different generations and I won't give up. There was no dialogue, no scenes with Sumino or her sister. There was barely any mention of it. The most we ever got was this final scene with her walking with her sister on the beach. But whatever, at least they added a scene. Then her fighting Lex alone just felt very out of character, especially since Sumino didn't want Rikuo to go in alone to face Rei, who was also working with Calamity. Now I can't really blame Toei too much for this situation. They were literally forced to remove Maya and literally did the best that they could. I'm thankful that Kawaku did step up for this role even when she was busy. However, there is no denying that this whole situation affected Sumino's overall story. And I'm gonna be honest, Sumino was one of my favorite characters in the entire show, and it's just sad to see it come to this. But even with this, she's still one of my favorites. I love detective mystery stories, and that's literally her whole entire story. And Maya brought so much charm and likability to Sumino that made me love her story even more. I was really glad to see that they had her use her detective skills in one episode to solve a murder mystery. It really showed how skilled she was at piecing things together. And I'm gonna be honest, every focused episode of hers was top tier. Especially the ShinkenRed episode where we see her teaming up with her sister. It was just beautiful. Overall, I wish that the stuff with Bunshun never happened, but it is what it is at this point. But we can't talk about Sumino without our best friend Kenji. I love this old man so much. Every time he was on screen with Sumino, it was cute as hell and you knew that it was going to be a good episode. And his relationship with the Gozyugers was mentor-like, but not at the same time. The fact that everyone thought he was a high schooler, but it was actually an old man was a surprise and changed how everyone perceived his character. However, there is one major problem with Kinjiro: the lack of focus episodes. You can literally count on your hand how many focus episodes Kinjiro had. His debut, show episode, Die Ranger episodes, and his fight with Sumino. And if we're being honest, the Showa era episode was a Sumino and Kinjiro focused episode, and most of it wasn't even focusing on him. And the fact that he's literally an old man and becomes young again, it just feels like wasted potential. There is so much you could have done with him, like having him get stuck in his old ways, like in the debut episode. Having him fight with one of the Gozyugers and learn that he was wrong or something like that. But they just decide not to do anything with him. He acted more as a support for the other Rangers, which is fine, but again, it feels like wasted potential for the entire idea. That said, I do like that they made Ryu Ranger have the same wish as Kinjiro. This is one thing that I was hoping from the point it was revealed that he was old that they would actually do. With that said, I will admit that his final battle was done really well, with him learning that he's okay with his old life and finds out the true meaning of being a party person, being just like his wife. Helping people achieve their dream is what it means to be a party people. Overall, I just wish that Kinjiro had more focus episodes. I think he was a great character that just got barely any time to shine. Like I said before, he's a great support character for the team, and it works given what he learns in the fight against Sumino. But again, I just wish we got more focus on him. And now we gotta talk about my boy Ryuji. I love Ryuji. He is hilarious and honestly made for some of the most comedic moments in the entire series. I will never forget Tegasword is fresh. But Ryuji isn't all gags. He has some really deep episodes that go hard. We waited nearly 20 episodes for a Ryuji episode, and oh man did it pay off. His story with Red Racer was a sweet story and gave us a little bit of backstory on his family, who have an entire generational line of being doctors, which Ryuji broke, all to create a cult. but we also learn how he learned about Tegasword and why he fell in love with him. Honestly, this was one of my favorite two-parters in Gozyuger. Just seeing how close Shoko and him were as children, and why she ended up as Boso Red Racer due to her love and care for Ryuji when they were children. Fast forwarding later into the story, he would be the first Gozyuger to initiate a fight for the rings. Of course, after the realization that Tegasword had become weakened due to the events of the summer movie, and knowing that someone needed to collect all the rings, leading to one of the most depressing fights in Gozyuger. You could just immediately feel the tonal shift at that point. Ryuji would pull a Gemba and leave the show for a bit and go back to his father and work as a doctor, and refuses to join the Gozyugers again. But when all the Gozyugers go down to Rei and the No One, he pulls through and gets his ring back from Rei. Which, by the way, I love that they kept the continuity that the rings choose their users. But with that, he destroyed the No One and rejoined the team. From there, his story kind of just takes a back seat, and he kind of joins Kindro in being a support role for the other Gozyugers, which honestly is fine. He already had a story. And if I'm being honest, he does a really good job as a support role. For example, showing how he felt combining with Tegasword to encourage Rikuo to help Bouquet. Also, side note, this man was having the time of his life right there. Literally, this was exactly what I expected him to act like when he got this. Though I gotta admit, the episodes that he did have the focus were some of the best episodes of Gozyuger, hands down. And finally, we gotta talk about Machido. This guy is honestly the definition of flawed, and honestly, I think it works for his character. He wins the previous ring war, takes down the Calamity, and now wants to surpass Tegasword and achieve godhood. The problem is he is a human who is heavily flawed. He was a fraud the entire series because that's his character. Yeah, he did everything in the old world, but he still isn't at that god status. But my goodness, that final fight for him was honestly one of the best scenes in Sentai history, and nobody can take that away from him. He proved why he was the strongest in the previous war and pulls a Kamen Rider, sacrificing his own life to protect humanity. Peak character writing. And I'm glad that he pulled an ace and became a god in the end. And I find it funny that he's basically now running his own ring war and granting wishes. It's a nice full circle for his character. Overall, I like Kumade as a character, but I do wish that we got to see a little bit more of his time as GojuWolf and his time in the previous war. Though it seems like we're getting a TTFC special dedicated to that alone. So I look forward to seeing his previous team and how he interacted with them. And also maybe that black and red suit, please, Toei, thank you. Now overall, I'm gonna be honest, I love the villains of the story. The one who stood out the most for me honestly was Fire Candle though. He was the best character in the entire show, hands down. Every time he was on screen, he stole the fucking show. His rivalry with Hoederu was honestly the best part of early Gozyuger and is the reason why Hoederu is still a Gozyuger to this day. Though due to Tegajun questioning his efforts in getting the rings, he began seeking power, leading to him becoming ShinkenRed and becoming even more power hungry. Going from not only Super ShinkenRed, but then he gets his own Berserk form for ShinkenRed, which I'm pretty sure we can all agree was pretty hype, especially if you're a Shinkenger fan. Along with the fact that his ring actually brought back Juzo, another fire villain. Now that power-hungry craze does go away for a bit after being defeated. But once Tegajun is defeated and joins the Gojuger's side, Fire Candle then becomes more power-hungry, not only devouring Vital, but also absorbing part of Lex, and becomes the final boss, which honestly was nice full circle. Especially since he was Hoederu's first opponent in the entire show, and now he's his final opponent. As for the final battle, I did feel like Fire Candle was a bit of a letdown from this epic, grandiose point of view, especially when we had literal monsters who were godly forces. The fact that he just kinda gave up at the end just didn't sit right with me as a final villain, especially for the whole entire franchise. But narratively, I understand that he was basically Hoederu's Sasuke to his Naruto. They were always going to battle at the end, creating a full circle effect, which again, I do appreciate. Now, I already said most of what I wanted to say about Bouquet in the Rikuo section. I liked her obsession with Rikuo, but honestly, again, the ribbon stuff just felt very forced. Now, Mr. Shining Knife and Miss Sweet Cake were just overall underutilized. Like, there was that whole part with Mr. Shining Knife being a part of the Calamity, but nothing happens with it. Like, what was the whole point of that plotline? He killed his wife and then she came back in the very same episode. Like, how did that happen? They just dropped lore about these guys and then just did nothing with it. Like, what the hell was that? Also, I wish we had more moments with these guys, especially with the team. Especially since that episode with Kindro was really good. But with that said, we gotta talk about Kuan. I have a love-hate relationship with Kuan. I love him as a villain, but this guy is just weird. I will never forget the line, "Let's get married, Hoederu." Like whoever in the writing room said, let's add this has some weird fucking fetishes. And then when he becomes Hoederu's sword, it gets even creepier. Like seriously, what was going on in that writing room? But as a villain, I love Kuan. He is a perfect foil for all the Gozyugers, especially Hoederu. He manipulates him to quit the Gozyugers, and then after he rejoins them, he is just an absolute menace, taking them on left and right, stealing rings, always getting in their way. And the climactic battle with the two brothers was honestly just a chef's kiss. You could tell that they were planning this from the beginning, and it was done beautifully. It was your stereotypical sibling rivalry. Hoederu was basically always stronger, and Kuan could never compare to him. So even when the two talk things out, they still want to kill each other. Yet in the end, Hoederu is still saved by his brother sacrificing himself. And honestly, this entire episode centering around Hoederu's Christmas wish of having fun with his brother is just perfect. And who would have thought that Kuan out of all the people would come in clutch in this final fight? Not me. And if I'm being honest, it kind of does redeem a little bit of his actions. In the end, I think he was a good villain in character, but I feel like the writing team just had some weird fetishes that were just, weird. And finally, we have the Calamity. I'm gonna be honest, I love the concept of the Calamity, but that plotline of the story just doesn't deliver as good as the Bryden side of the story. Pestis and Bellum were perfectly fine in the story, but Vital and Lex, they were just underwhelming. Both of them had less than 2 episodes and barely had any build-up or anything. Vital shows up and overwhelms the Gozyugers, but really honestly, that's about it. And then you're telling me that Lex was this almighty force that not even Tegasword could defeat? And then he gets taken out in less than 1 episode by Kumade? You could have introduced him earlier into the series, teasing him taking out Universe Warriors, Bryden. Hell, you could have even had one of the Gozyugers face off against him and get completely wrecked, essentially having him being the one that's kind of pulling the strings in the background. But no, he just gets gassed up and then shows up and then gets destroyed in 20 minutes. Honestly, the Calamity, in my opinion, is just lackluster and just a way to give Fire Candle a power up to face Hoederu. Which again, I really like that Fire Candle was the final boss, but don't gas up the Calamity if they're gonna get taken down very fast. Overall, the Calamity was just horrible. Now I guess I should also mention the Universe Warriors, because there are some ones that I really liked. For example, Tokonatsu, Gaia, Fire Candle, Red Racer, and the Lupat duo. Every single one of these guys narratively were great references to their shows while also building up their own stories. Which for an anniversary season is good, as they should make you want to go and check out these seasons as sort of a preview, and also a good callback for fans of those shows. And I'm glad that some of the Warriors did return in the final as reinforcements. However, there are some weaker Universe Warriors like Kuogata Oger who just don't hit the mark. Nataya was set up to be a rival of sorts, and then he just gave up on the ring challenge, and by the way, he didn't even try. Bro got 0 rings despite claiming to go after them. Bro is just an absolute fraud. Overall, yes, Gozyuger has its flaws, a lot of plot holes, and disappointing moments. But in my opinion, those first 36 episodes are some of the best Super Sentai episodes. It did fall off for a couple episodes, but it managed to pick itself up and deliver a decent conclusion for fans. The moral of Gozyuger's story was to keep fighting, chase your dreams, and hopefully you'll find the people who will support you. Each and every one of these guys were lone wolves, yet they found their group of friends through many hardships. Even from a production standpoint, these guys breathed their message. Even with all the issues, they managed to pull through, delivering the final episode. Everyone did their best from the cast and the production, and it really shows. If I had to rank it against other anniversary seasons, I'd likely put it right below Gokaiger and Zenkaiger, and right above Zyuohger, which to be honest, Zyuohger barely did anything for the 40th. And I simply just haven't seen the others, so I really can't comment on the others. In the end, I think this show was very ambitious. It had way too many moving parts, and due to that, some parts of the show felt like they were being neglected and led to plot holes. And the production issues just did not help it one bit. On a scale of 1 out of 10, I would probably put it at a 10 out of 10 masterpiece pre-episode 36. But post-episode 36, it is definitely a 7 out of 10. But with that said, how do you feel about the series? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you in the middle? Let me know down in the comment section below. And while you're down there, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe for more videos. We got Project R.E.D starting next week, and you do not want to miss out. And with that, thank you, Super Sentai.